it's almost that time of year again when the world descends on Edinburgh and the local population swells by several 100,000. It can only be the Edinburgh Fringe, and this is my helpful guide to attending and getting the most out of it. Now, if you're planning to spend more than a day at the Fringe and don't fancy sleeping rough, then accommodation is going to be one of your biggest costs. There's just no getting around that. I mean, even the smallest, tiniest, pokiest shed on Airbnb during the month of August is going to set you back an absolute eye-wateringly expensive sum. Now, I found a great way to get around this though. It really keeps the costs down, and that is to just stay with your sister in Edinburgh. But don't worry, if you don't have a sister in Edinburgh, you can just try and get adopted. So, you've got your accommodation sorted. Now the next thing to decide is what to see, and with over 300 venues and well over 3,500 shows, you really are spoilt for choice. On that note, I should point out that with so many shows vying for your attention, flyering is an inevitability. You'd be foolish to think you could avoid it. Seriously, you can't avoid it. Gee, it sure was hot work avoiding all those flyers. I could really do with a shower to cool off. Dude, what with 3 5-star comedy starting soon? So, what to actually see? Well, if you like stand-up with suspiciously positive reviews, you've come to the right place. But it's worth remembering it was more to the Fringe than just comedy. There's a whole heap of other theatre and artsy stuff going on. And, whilst my time at Fringe will always include a healthy dose of comedy, I've always found myself drawn to the latter, the weirder, the quirkier, the more unusual the better. What's that? A show where you're blindfolded and hugged by an individual singer? Sounds intriguing. A show for two, where a venue's actually a car and you end up being driven to the outskirts of Edinburgh? Sign me up. Of course, finding such delights can often prove tricky. However, I've come up with a fairly good method of sniffing out these sorts of shows, and that is to look for shows that feel compelled to give warnings. Now, I'm not talking the kind of, everyday boring warnings like profanity or adult content. The weirder the warnings, the weirder the show. For instance, this year I'm putting a lot of hope on 2 shows, the first of which warns its audience that they'll be seated in deck chairs and given a free cocktail on arrival. I mean, I'm in. And another show where you're warned that the show takes place in a pitch dark shipping container. I mean, honestly, you had me at pitch dark. So, you've found a couple of shows that you're interested in. Now it's time to start planning your Fringe schedule. And hey, isn't that looking great? That is, of course, until you realise that actually at least half of your shows overlap. Back to the drawing board. Now, one of the most common pieces of Fringe advice is remember to leave lots of time between your shows so you can get from A to B. Terrible advice, because honestly, if you don't find yourself cutting around Edinburgh like Renton and Spuds, you're not doing the Fringe right. I mean, 15 minutes between your shows and Google Maps says it takes 12, time to get a coffee en route. Your next show is 3 miles away and only 1 bus will get you there in time. Challenge accepted. Now, fingers crossed you found at least some of that helpful. All that's really left for me to do now is to wish you a very merry Ed Fringe. Good flyer that. Cheers. One final thing before I go. If you end up not having a very merry Ed Fringe and come the end of August you find yourself several £100s down, hungover and massively jaded by the whole experience, don't worry, because 90% of acts you've seen will be in a much worse state. Cheers.